Kavita, all of those who put a lot of work behind the scenes. So let's take a moment to talk about why we're here today, this day-long symposium. I feel it's very important, I'm sure you do too, but let's talk about why that is. Why so many people, deaf people, would choose to give up their Saturdays. Next slide, please. What among the stakeholders, who among the stakeholders do you think is missing today? Because today's educational challenges are so complex, cooperation among all stakeholders is critical. Quote from Esther Quintero. Oh, sorry, it's on that screen as well. Okay, that's fine. I don't want to move too far in front of the screen, so you can also see the screens on either side of the room. Got that set? Okay. Wow, this is really well coordinated. Communication is happening. Next slide. So yeah, who are the missing stakeholders? This is from the law itself. Look at line number 8. I know there's a lot there that you might want to read. It's all about the newborn hearing screening, that law, the EHDI. It says including community, consumer, parent-based agencies and organizations. But the community and consumers have been missing at the table. The deaf community, deaf agencies, parent-based agencies have been involved pretty much throughout. But not deaf agencies are seeking a seat at the table. And I think all of us who are here today, because everyone cares about deaf babies. We need to have everyone who cares about deaf babies at the table. Next. If you want to know more about how it is, what deaf people's perspective is on the issues regarding language deprivation, language development, kindergarten readiness, there's a wonderful language policy you can access at this URL. It's a 15-page document. I encourage you to read. It's great bathroom reading, bathtub reading. Next. So what is our problem at this point? I think a lot of people have never really put in our face the statistics about what's really going on now and how little things have changed over the years. And the statistics about reading levels and language development levels have pretty much been stagnant, and that's why we're here today. 70% of babies and toddlers are language delayed or deprived. But with a pretty good chance, maybe for some, of catching up, for some others, no. It's dicey for a lot of these children. 8% of deaf and 15% of hard of hearing K through 12 students are reading at grade level. The second statistic is rather old, the first one is more recent. Next. So why is this happening? There are a lot of reasons. We often focus on others focus on auditory deprivation as the source of language deprivation. And certainly it's one, but there are a lot of other things that contribute to that as well. And so today we're going to focus on some of these other causes. This were included in CAD's language policy report. We've been talking about language deprivation, but the first quote says the basic deprivation of deafness is not the deprivation of sound, it is the deprivation of language, from Meadows, 1980. Also, Gulati mentioned that the lack of or ineffective access to language is called language deprivation syndrome. Maudlin talks about medicalization. Hayir talks about ableism, that is, expecting deaf people to adapt to the way hearing people live their lives. Autism, which is very similar to ableism. Hearing technology not being a panacea for language development. Although that often is the focus, that in itself does not actually account for the problems. We all have to admit that we've been more likely to do what our schools have taught us, more likely to stick with the experiences of the past. But if we gather together, we can release those things. We can take new steps for the new day and for all the tomorrows to come in a positive way. It's very positive to let go of things that have been holding us back. So many more things can be done if we do it together. I know that we're a little bit behind, so let's see if I can move through this quickly. One speech teacher mentioned that it was amazing to hear how many parents, people in the various professions don't know the difference between communication and language. They always say it's important to provide communication, but that's not what's really important. What's important is to provide language, at which point communication will follow. So we must relearn this together. Yeah, and I'm trying to stay within my 10 minutes. I'm sorry, next slide. This was taken from the ASHA organization's website, saying that speech is how we say sound and words, and they focus on speech. But then what is communication? That is the imparting or exchanging of information or news between people. It's done by language, but the effect is to communicate. Without language, that can't happen, and this is taken from the Oxford Dictionary. So I think separating these things out is sort of a paradigm shift for us. I want to make sure the interpreters are doing okay. Now, what is language? That's one of the least discussed questions. This was also taken from the ASHA website. I'm not making this up out of whole cloth. This is from the American Speech and Hearing Association's website. That language is made up of shared rules that include these things that are listed here. You can take a look later. But why language is essential is research has shown that brain development and language development are interconnected in very important ways, and that you can never discount the value of language development and cognitive development. And that it's it's a serious component of brain architecture, cognitive development, social emotional development, the ability to communicate, to read, being kindergarten ready, and to succeed academically. All the various, like the STEM issues that are STEAM topics that are so important today. Yeah, are you going to do it? Oh, you have. The Pediatrics Organization has an article in which Dr. Lantos wrote that deaf children need to learn language. They must learn from parents, teachers, and their community. I'm adding that emphasis here. The more languages they learn, the better these children will be able to communicate. And there's more after that. Even Alexander Graham Bell, of all people, in 1884 said, "I admit the ease with which a deaf child acquires sign language and its perfect adaptability for the purpose of developing its mind." That was in 1884 from A.G. Bell. Why haven't we kept talking about this? History is full of these kinds of examples that we discount, but that's what we can make good use of as a deaf community. Is language a part of interventional strategies? Now let's look to line 11 from that same law where we saw line 8 earlier, which programs specifically designed to meet the unique language and communication needs of deaf and hard-hearing newborns, infants, toddlers, and children. But this is incorrectly stated. Not communication needs, language needs, and we're here to make sure that happens. The law is there, but why are we not providing the language services at an early intervention, which really is what's required? I want to talk about the National Association of Education of Young Children, or NIAC, and it focuses on the education of children from age 0 to 5. And there's some principles that they have that may be beneficial. They have a lot. I'll just pull some from this one here. And it's from P-4.11. When policies are enacted for purposes that do not benefit children, we have a collective responsibility to work to change these policies. And that's why we're here today. We want to change policies. Frederick Douglass, I loved him. And he says that it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And we want to strengthen our children, and that's done through our collaboration. We want to start with a fresh, positive day, and I look forward to what this day brings.